Hi, in this video we're going to look at the changes in version 1.1 of a waveform generator. The first change comes in form of an automatic or manual version check. By default, the automatic version check will be enabled and you will not have to do anything. Once every 24 hours when you start the program, it will look if a new version is available. If a new version is not available, nothing would happen. However, if a new version is available, it will display a box of information that tells what's included in that new version, and there will be a link to download it. There is also a manual check. As long as the automatic check is enabled, as it is by default, the manual check is disabled. The manual check is found here in the help menu. And as you can see, it's disabled as of now. So if I go into settings and I uncheck this automatic check and click OK, now when I go to the help menu, this menu item is enabled. In this case, I'm faking a new version would be available. And as you can see, you're told which version you're running. You're told which version is available. There'll be some remarks. They might change from version to version. As of now, they simply tell you can use the link listed above or navigate to the Infinite Noise website. And then there is a list of all the things included in that version. So, for example, you could look and see if there's anything you want to have in this version, or you simply could choose to stay in the version you have. There's no way to automatic download things, but as I said, this version text contains a link. And also the help menu have a menu item to navigate to the website from where the new version can also be downloaded. Now I have disabled the fake version check. So when you perform a manual version check and no new version is available, you're just told that you're running the latest version. My suggestion is to leave the automatic check enabled and then don't do the manual, because this way you don't have to do anything. You're simply informed a new version is available. Beside the version check showing what's new, I've also added a history which is available in the help menu. And this history tells in a reverse order what have been added to the software. Here you can see a little information about the alpha version and the first released version, and then what's new in this version 1.1. In this video I will go over most of these things, but when you have downloaded it yourself, you can read all the text and see what's added in this version if you want to. Also, the video you're looking at right now, you can find a link in the help menu. In the help menu, you have this menu item called Video Tutorials. Here you have link to all the YouTube videos I have recorded for this program. And for each update, I plan to record a video also in which I will highlight what's added to that version or changed in that version. So you find that in this menu also. In this new version, I have added a new basic waveform. So now, as the third last, you have this one called operators. And you can see the operators, like many of the others, have an edit menu for you to change their values. The operator waveform is based around 4 operators. Each of these operators is a sign, and for each sign you can dial in a frequency. The frequency range is from 0.5 to 64, and it's increased in steps of 0.5, and the reason for that is to ensure it will always begin at the 0 line and end at the 0 line. Beside the frequency, you can also shift it half a phase or 180 degrees. And the reason it's 180 degrees is also to ensure that it will still begin and end at the 0 line. Each of these operators have a group box, but above you have then algorithm. The algorithm is selecting how many of these operators are active and how they are used. This first algorithm, 1 less than 2, the less than sign is meant to be read as an arrow, so it appears as the 2 operator is pointing into the 1 operator. And the notion of that is to inform that the output of operator 2 is used to modulate the phase of operator 1. And by dialing in different frequencies, you get different outputs. But you are not locked to just this one algorithm. In total, there are 11 different algorithms. The first is the only one that only includes operators 1 and 2. The next 3 also includes operator 3, and all the rest of them include all 4 operators. And then the algorithm simply choose how those 3 or 4 algorithms are combined. For example, this one, 1 less than 2 less than 3, indicate that operator 3 is manipulating is modulating the phase of operator 2, which modulate the phase of operator 1. This next one, 1 less than parenthesis 2 plus 3, should be read as operator 2 and 3 are mixed, and then that mixed signal is used to modulate the phase of operator 1. And if we look at the next again, you have parenthesis 1 less than 3 plus parenthesis 2 less than 3. It means operator 3 is used to modulate the phase of both operator 1 and 2, and then those 2 results are mixed together. So you can simply try out with different and more complex algorithms and different operators and shift some of them. Also, this form, like many other forms, have an random button you can press, and it will randomly pick an algorithm, and it will randomly set the frequency or the shift phase checkbox of each operator in use. So you can get different results. So this is the new operator waveform. In the same matter, I have made a new value converter that is related to this one. And this value converter I have called Phase-Inject. And it operates in the same way as the Phase-Inject operator in compound waveform functions. So let's look at that. If I go in and create a compound waveform, and I choose 2 signs, a sign for partial 1 and a sign for partial 2, and I choose the Phase-Inject operator, you see we get the exact same result as we did before. For more information about this Phase-Inject operator, you can go look at the video for compound waveforms. In that video, all of the operators are described, and also in the manual you find a description of that operator. But if we go back and to our advanced waveform, set up a sign and set up a Phase-Inject value converter, you can see that the Phase-Inject value converter have a single variant, and that variant is a waveform and that waveform is used to inject into the sign to our basic waveform, in this case a sine. And you have a few waveforms you can choose from. basically what it does is it takes the output of the phase-inject variant, the phase-inject waveform, and then inject that as phase values into your basic waveforms. I know it sounds complicated, but I think you should watch that video or read the manual for how the phase-inject operator works. And now it's simply become available as a value converter. Also in this version I did a small change to the exponential phase converter. When you choose the exponential phase converter, you first have a variant where you choose a factor, and then the second variant you choose the range. By default it chooses the full range from 0 degrees to 360 degrees. The second variant lets you choose split this range into the first 180 degrees and the last 180 degrees, and then the factor is applied to each of those ranges separately. And for these two first range values I have changed nothing, but the third of them it performs where also a left-right split. You split it in the first 180 and the last 180 degrees, but what it does is it reverses the effect in the last one. And in the previous version this was not symmetric. It had a hard break here, and then you'd see you'll have a different slope up here than you'll have down here. But I have made a small change, so now it's symmetric what it does. So if you have made some waveforms using this phase converter with this exact second variant, those waveform will change a bit, but it's not much. But I prefer this symmetric effects in this version. Another change in this version is in form of the partial waveforms, how they handle the split. For example, if we choose a sine and a triangle, and we choose to split them at 50%, like before, we see half a sine and half a triangle. But looking here in the split section, you will see that the transition fields used to be up here, that now move down here, and instead we have this waveform frequency. These two values default to prop, which is short for proportional. Right now we have selected to see 50% of each half, so we see 50% of the sine and we see 50% of the triangle. However, we can change this frequency. So if I choose for the first checkbox associated with advanced waveform 1, if I choose 1, you see we will now see one full cycle of the sine, and then the rest part is still proportional, so we only see the 50% of the triangle. And if I change the splits, what I'm doing now is I'm actually just moving the split point. We are still seeing a full, for example here I've changed the split to 25%. We will see now that the first 25% we have a full cycle of the sine, because we up here have chosen the frequency to be 1. But as the checkbox associated with the triangle is still proportional, we will see a proportional amount of the triangle. So we see 25% of the triangle. And as soon as one of these fields are changed to be no longer be proportional, the transition will be disabled. I would like to re-enable the transitions for these full frequencies at a later point, but I decided not to delay this version in order to implement that, because behind the scenes I would have to change a lot of things for this to work. So it will come in a later version. Let's dial in a frequency of 2 for the for the triangle. So now you see we have one full cycle of the sine and we have 2 full cycles of the triangle. And now when I move the split point, it looks more like pulse width modulation effects, that you can squeeze either of these halves. But it's not only implemented for this default split type called 1/2. The other two, it's also working. So now choosing the one called 1-2-1 and still have set the two new fields to 1 and 2, we will see in the first 25% we have a full sine. Then in the middle part we will have our two triangles. And then in the last 25% we will again have our full sine. And if we change again to the last of the split types, you will see that you have a sine here. Then you have this middle part where we have the triangle, and then a sine again, triangle and sine. And simply by choosing these, for example, here I set it back to proportional, but you can choose multiple sines or multiple triangles. If we go back to the first one, you can have an effect here where we, for example, have the first 50%, we have one full cycle of the sine or half a cycle of the sine, and then in this case 5 triangles. This effect could be achieved also using a compound waveform and different operators, but it's a lot easier to use here. So if you want to make these weird waveforms, you can now do so thanks to these two new fields. And as you can see right now, the transition is disabled because we have dialed in a value here that's not proportional, but when both of them go back to proportional, the transition will again be active. So this is the change I made to the partial waveform. At one of the sites where I informed people that I had released version 1, a guy called Alex sent me a private message and asking me if this software was usable by blind people. And I said I had no idea because to my knowledge, this is the first time I know of blind people using my software. And I had no idea how much useful it would be to them. But he reported back that he had installed the software and could in fact use it. But naturally, he had some requests he would like me to implement to make it more useful for blind people. And in this version, I have changed a lot of things. And some of the things will both be for the blind, and also the rest of us can use many of those features. For example, software developer, or at least I am notorious bad at setting up the correct tab order. When you use the keyboard, you can tap through the fields to change the focus, and when you add buttons, you forget to update this tab order because I must be honest, I'm used to using the mouse. And of course, as you know, if you hold Alt, you can see this underscore in some of the letters to inform you that there is a shortcut for these keys and so on. So that's normally the way I use this software. But in this version, I have made more shortcuts. I have looked at the tab order in all of the forms. And I have added new shortcuts that was not there in the previous version. For example, in this version, if you want to have a closer look at this waveform, or you want to listen to it, you can double-click this illustration of the waveform. And here it will we can hear the waveform. And that's because I, in settings, had told the program to play the waveform as soon as I open this window. You can still, as I did here, double-click. But now in all forms that contain a waveform to which you can listen, you can simply press F1. And that will open this window. Also, you have the shortcuts. You see here we have a play key and a stop key. So you can simply press P for play. or S for stop. Also, the volume, you have this track bar you can use with your mouse. But as the hint says here, you can also use the keys 1 and 2. And below you have the octave. And you can use the keys 3 and 4 to change the octave. So you don't need to use the track bars. So here I lower the volume with 1. And now I press 3 to reduce the octave. Or 4 to increase it. And S to stop playback. So now, both for us seeing and for the blind, it's more easy to use this part of the software. In this case, we have two waveforms. We have this partial waveform. We have an advanced waveform 1 and an advanced waveform 2. And I also added a feature so you can listen to those two separately. Before we listen to the output when these two have been split, but to only listen to the first advanced waveform, we can simply use Shift F1. You can see it displays a sign and we can hear the sign. Going back and pressing Shift 2. We now both see and hear the triangle waveform. And if we close this window and go out and make a compound waveform, and quickly just set up a few, set the first partial as a sine, and the second partial as let's choose a square. And let's say we want to add these together. As before, to listen to this mix of those two, we simply press F1. But if I want to listen only to the first partial, I use Shift 1. Or Shift 2 to just listen to the second. Let's dial in some more. Let's choose the third as a triangle. And choose the fourth as a saw. And let's choose to mix those, the triangle and the saw. Of course, with Shift 3 and Shift 4, we can listen to the two partials. Here we have the triangle. And here the saw. But in this version, you can also listen and watch the output of each operators. For example, this third operator that's used to mix partial 3 and 4, we cannot see how it looks and we cannot hear it by itself. I have this operator 2 in the middle. Right now it's set to left, so we actually only see the output of operator 4. Of course, I could choose it to change it to right to see how these two are mixed. And we see here the change, for example, the percentage of the mix to this. I could not see that unless I change this one to right. So let's go back to left. What you can do now is you can use the the control key and the keys F1 to F3 to both see and listen to the output of these operators separately. So if I want to see the result and listen to the result of operator 3, I simply press Control F3. And here you see, like before, this is how the waveform looks. And we also heard how it sounds. So those shortcuts are now added to these forms to make it things more easy for everybody. While I went through all these shortcuts, I noticed that in many cases when a form had a clear button or clear all, I have simply added as Alt-C to choose that button, but I also use the same button for the cancel. So in this version, I have changed every form that have a clear or clear all button. You can simply use Control Backspace as a shortcut for that clear button. And you're told also in the hint information when you hover the mouse over the clear button, it will tell you that's the key to use. In forms, let's go back to an advanced waveform and choose a basic additive. In order to set up that basic additive, you have to press the edit button. And in previous version, you had to use the mouse. In this version, you can simply use Alt and E, and that will open the form for basic additive waveforms. One of the features that Alex contacted me requested was being able to edit the basic additive waveform as some kind of text format, because it's clearly not usable for a blind person to try to draw in these volumes or draw in the faces. So what you can do in this version is you can export it or edit it as a CSV file or comma separated values. When you press this button, it will open a form, and in this form you can edit all the information as text. If you want to know more information about the values here, before you click edit as CSV, below you have two checkboxes. The first, I can choose to include those with a 0 value. For example, in this case, I have only drawn in harmonics for the first 5 harmonics. I only draw in volumes for the first 15 harmonics. So normally I will only see those values, but if I check this one, include 0 volumes, it will include the rest of the harmonics also. And also I can choose to include comments. If I include comments, when I press the edit as CSV and open this form, it will list some line starting with a semicolon, and the semicolon is to express this is a comment. So now you can see the first column contains the full harmonic values, and you have to use values in the range from 1 to 128. The second column, and that's what comes here after the comma, it contains the volume, and the volume can either be displayed as a decimal value or it can be displayed as a fraction. In this case, you'll see the first three values. We have the volume expressed as a decimal value, but in the fourth line, it's listed as 1/17, means it's 1/17th of a full volume. And you can enter as both. For example, this fifth line, if I want to, I can enter it as 1/4 if I want to have it as 3/3. And the last value is simply the phase of that harmonic. So if I, for the fifth harmonic, enter 30, now when I click, because I have made changes, so now when I close this form, either click the close button or the X in the upper right corner, or simply press escape, it will include these changes I have made. So now this one will be set, and as you see here, the fifth harmonic, its volume is set to 75% because we entered it as 3/3. If I go to edit it again, it will not be listed at 3/3, it will be listed at 0.75, but you can both enter as a decimal value or as a fraction. So now it's possible for blind people also to edit and set up these basic additive waveforms. In this example, I edit all values in this text box directly. But this text box also contains a save as and a load button. So you can actually save out this file and then use some other tool to edit. For example, some people might want to import it into a spreadsheet program like Excel or Calc or something like that, and then they can change it there, save it out, load it back into this window, and when you make changes to this window, it will simply import these changes you have made. If you make a mistake, for example, if I add a backslash here instead of a slash, when I close the window, I'm told an error was found. I'm told it's found in line 10, and it lists that line. It does not say exactly what the error is. You will have to figure that out for yourself. But you can go in and change it. And here I have not changed it, so when I close the form again, I'm again told that there's an error. By default, I choose yes to go back to edit, and I can also say no, I don't want to, and then I go back and nothing will be changed. So that's how you can now edit basic waveforms as texts. In the same manner, when you make an advanced waveform and choose edit, let's just generate a random one, like this one. And when I go in, we here also have an edit as CSV. And let's go back and say we want to include the comments. You see here we have more columns, and these columns match those we have up here, with the exception that the full and fraction harmonic have been put together into a decimal value. So, for example, if we look at the first one, it says the first column says yes, because yes, this is an active one. We see the full harmonic, it's listed as, and there is no fraction, so it's simply listed as 1. No decimals, no anything. The volume is listed in this case as a fraction, 1/1, meaning it's full. Then we see the waveform is a sine. And we see next the operation is an add, and we see a 0 for the phase values. Here I have included all the information for the columns. You can see that again the volume can be listed as a decimal value or a fraction. You can see the names. You can it lists all the names for the waveforms. It lists all the values you can use for the operations. And it informs you the phase have to be entered in full degrees from 0 to 360. And in this case, for example, this the second last line, we have a fraction harmonic, so it's listed as 377.017. So while it listed up here in the form as two separate values, here in this CSV it's put together as one value. And like before, you can choose to save this out to a file and load it back if you want to edit it in some external program. In this case, we had 5 lines in the list view in the form, but we only see 4 of them in the output CSV, and that's because when you generate this CSV, you have a checkbox that's called include inactive. By default, it's unchecked, and that's why we are not seeing this one with a no. if I check this checkbox include inactive and open, you will see it will be listed with a no instead of a yes. So now we have all waveforms. All those with a no are not contributing. They are simply disabled, so they're not changing anything. They're not doing anything. And that's the reason they're by default not exported into the CSV format. Also in this version I made a small change. I have This program has been so long on the way because I've been doing other projects. So it's become second nature to me that I know every time I press escape, it closes the form and go back. But for you who are used to for you who are not used to this software, who are new to this software, you might want to be asked if you want to go back, because you could potentially lose any changes. And for example, if you use the new hotkey to press, for example, if you're editing an advanced waveform and you press F1 to listen to that waveform, you can press escape to close that window you used to listen to that waveform. But if you press escape a second time by accident, it will instantly close that window and go back, and you lose your changes. If you don't like that, I added a new setting, and that new setting is enabled by default. And it says ask if you're sure before closing certain forms, and when you hover the mouse over, it will tell you that those certain forms are those where you can edit waveforms. So you can see when I go in and edit this, double click and edit this advanced waveform, whether I make changes or not, when I close this window, press escape, I will be asked if I want to close it. And by default, it chooses the yes button. So I can simply hit enter and it will close that form. Or I can press the no button to not close it. If you close the form with OK, it will not ask you, because pressing OK means you want to save your changes, so there's no need to ask you. As you saw, when that question comes, if you want to close that window, it defaults to the yes button, meaning yes, I want to close this window without saving my changes. Going back into setting, when you have enabled this ask are you sure checkbox, there is another one where you can set it to default the answer to no. If not checked, it will default to yes. So in this case, when I go edit this waveform and I press escape, it will default to this Danish translation of no. And if I press enter, I will go back. So if I press escape, I will actually have to choose the yes button and press enter to go back. Personally, I think I will disable this question, because it's not important for me. I'm used to it closing the waveform. It's very rarely I press escape too much. I rather not have to press that second button every time. But it's there if you want to use it. It's enabled by default, as I think most people want it active, but as I just showed you, you can go into settings and disable it. So these were the major things changed in this version. There are a few, two small things I fixed, and a few other small issues I have changed. But as I said before, if you want to see what it is, you can go into the history and read about it.